And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another fantastic episode of the Convergence Enigma with Josh and Stefan. This is your host, Stefan Gearhart, and I am joined, as always, by my most intelligent host, Josh Rutledge. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing fantastic. You know, the compliments are just getting better and better with each episode.
Yep, you hang on to that feeling. You hang on to that feeling. We have a fantastic guest on the show today. We've got Russ Kellett, claims to have been abducted at least 60 times by 15-foot aliens and made to fight for them in an intergalactic war, causing PTSD and chronic fatigue syndrome. We have been eagerly awaiting this interview. Russ, how are you, sir? How are you today, Russ? Can you hear us?
Yeah, it just keeps on sort of like coming and going, doesn't sound, but
that's the Men in Black messing with us.
Well, we can.
Funnily enough, it happens quite a lot, does this, and this is what sometimes hosts do say, that things just go a little bit weird. Probably the weather.
Yes.
So, I don't know, to jump into it here a little bit. You first got abducted when you were 16, and then been abducted several times since. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah.
And just, I guess, do you remember much from your first abduction?
Yeah. At one time, I had what I could only describe as 100% memory recall. But as time went on, things happened, and I'll tell you this. It's sort of like back to front, but this is one of the things that happened. That when I was talking to my dad one Sunday morning, and he'd come in from paper shop, and like with newspapers, I put them down on the table. We're talking, and I said, "Do you want a tea? I'll make you a drink of tea." So he went in the other room, and I made a couple of teas, picked a paper up, and started reading whilst I was waiting for kettle to boil. And he came in, and sort of like for his tea, what I was supposed to be making him, and I was reading this newspaper, but something was going on, and it was just unbelievable. And I'm reading, but I can't read. I'm trying to read, and in my mind's just it's very hard to explain. But my dad said to me, "Where's my tea, Russ?" And I started talking to him, and I'm saying that, I'll go make it now, kettle's boiled. But it didn't come out like that. It didn't come out like that at all. I just started talking gobbledygook. And then he said, "What?" And then I was telling him, in a roundabout way, I didn't feel well and there was something wrong. Well, that didn't come out right. And he just stood there looking at me. And then I'd said something else to him. I can't remember exactly what, because it just wasn't making any sense. So he about turned, went out of the door, and went to the bottom and shouted upstairs to my mum. "Rita," he said, "there's something wrong with our Russ." She says, "Why? What's up?" She shouted down. And he says, "He's not well at all." So he came back in the room, and anyway, cut long story short, he picked me up and took me out and put me in the car and rushed me to hospital. Told me mum, I'm taking him to hospital. So goes in hospital, accident and emergency. And he says there's something wrong with him. So they says, "Does he take drugs?" And he says, "No." "Are you sure?" "Yeah, not that I'm aware of." "Has he been poorly recently?" And anything major, any problems with, has he had an accident? Has he had anything like trauma to his head, you know. So my dad said, no, none of these. So anyway, they were waiting, and I got them days you'd get seen to pretty fast, you know. So what happened was that he left me there, and they said, come back, because he's going to have to stay in at least overnight, see what's wrong. So when my dad and my mum came to hospital, they sent me to a different hospital next door, and they told me mum and my dad to go, and I were at Duke of York, and I was I'd been taken to a ward, and it was one where an isolation unit.
Okay.
Right. So my mum and dad looked, and they said, an isolation unit, and they says, yeah, he's in an isolation unit. So anyway, they came to see me, and I was in this room with a window, and you could talk to me from the window inside, but you couldn't go in. So anyway, I'd been in there a few days. They said if it were one of these 5 things, I were probably not going to make it. But what it is, I had memory loss. I'd gone blind by the time they'd come, my mum and dad, right? Yeah, no smell, you know, sort of like all my senses just gone, you know. Second day, I was coming around a bit. My sight, I could see him, but I had this headache, and you know, sort of like, so, you know, it was very odd, because I came out 3 days later. I'd come out, and they don't know what it was. They don't know what it was. They hadn't come across anything like it. I'd had brain scans, body scans, everything.
Wow.
But my memory of all this, being abducted and stuff, was I could feel it when I was sat talking to my dad originally, right? Yeah, I could feel something being taken out of my brain like that. It was one of the most frightening things, if not the most frightening thing that's ever happened to me.
Yeah, I can bet.
You know? So the third day, they let me home, and talking to the nurse, and I said, well, you know, what's wrong? And they said, well, we don't know. We're not sure. We've looked at all the things what we thought it was, all the things what it could have been. There is something which is like a migraine attack, but it's so severe, it causes like a stroke. And it's something called something like that, where you have like a stroke, a mini stroke. But they couldn't even determine that it was that. So I said, I don't think, you know, so I've got to go to work. You know, I said, because she said, you'll have to have a week off work, 2 weeks off work or something. And I said, what, for migraine? I said, my boss ain't gonna like that.
Oh, yeah.
You know. And she said, your boss will just have to like it. So anyway, you know, that's one of the reasons why I don't have 100% memory of everything, because when I did have 100% memory, it was taken away, and that's how it was taken away. It felt like it had been taken away.
So what's really interesting is I've got a really close friend who had a repressed memory from their childhood that they had repressed. It was like a really hurtful memory, and they pushed it down all throughout their adult life. And then later on in their adult life, they ended up having a stroke because the trauma of continually repressing that memory caused their body to react. And so it was a similar situation where they couldn't really, it wasn't like a normal stroke. They didn't, lose like 1/2 of their body or something like that. It was just, but it broke them down because of that repressed memory. And it's almost similar to your case.
Yeah. Well, the strange thing is, I was talking to somebody on Facebook, and she also is an abductee, and I could not believe what she told me, which was that she had been rushed to hospital and she'd been put in an isolation ward because of being taken poorly and having, memory loss. And she were in like for 3 days, and they told her the same thing. Now, to me, that is not a coincidence. I don't believe in coincidences.
Mm-mm.
So I'd still talk to her. She's on my friends list, and it's like that to me is a lot more than just coincidence. I wonder how many more people as well has it happened to. How many more people are actually abducted? How many more people can be bothered to tell anybody? Because of ridicule.
Right. Yep. Well, it's really interesting. So we just got done our last episode. We did what we call an infield convergence, and so we looked at the UFO flap that happened in 1977 in the England, Wales, Scotland area. And I think if I've done the math right, you would have been somewhere around 12 or 13 in 1977. And it all kind of trailed off with the infield poltergeist, which was kind of the center around the Conjuring movie. Is that right, Stefan?
Conjuring 2.
Okay. But that whole process of the infield poltergeist also happened for 3 years after it started, which again would have coincided with your first abduction. For me, that's one of the things that we look at. Hence the name of the show is, are some of these things related in some way? And so, it seems interesting to me that the infield poltergeist kind of ended right around the same time that you were first abducted, and then your cycle began with abductions. So,
yeah, to be quite honest, I think it's an even bigger issue, all this, than what you can even imagine, because around my abduction 16, that would have happened in 1980, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But let's go back to say like 1970, right? Yeah. And 1974, I've been working on a case, and I wrote. I'll just show you this. I wrote this book. Now that's in Welsh, and it means alien invasion Wales, right? Yeah, that above is in Welsh, and it's about 5 gentlemen that was travelling home one evening after they'd been to a men's club, a meeting, and they'd been drinking apart from the driver, and he was driving the other 4 home, and they come to the side of the road. They saw a flying saucer in the field, in the farmer's field, and there were 5 aliens, like those alien greys. Now, I've worked on that case for nearly 30 years now, and I wrote that book, and it's got all sorts of information, and a lot of it is to do with the timeline and the police and emergency, different emergency companies. We call them companies.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And emergency services and what have you. Now the thing is, right? There's about 70 papers in there, pages of these papers, which are from the police log, right? Yeah, and it basically when you read what happened, the proper timeline, you see that it doesn't weigh up what they've actually said. And there was supposed to be this earthquake when it all started at 8:38, but right at the beginning, we've got somebody who rings up at 8:32, and he's talking about it. So how does he know about what happened 6 minutes before it officially happened? So anyway, but the thing is, whilst I've been investigating this actual incident, what I've come across is there's like villagers around this area, and you cannot get sort of like a simple yes or a no. Did it happen? You know what I mean? People change their statements, and I had a phone call after the book had gone out, and I wish this person would have contacted me before. And he was talking about this incident, and he told me what his profession was. And then he told me something. He says, if you knew how many people had been abducted on this night, the 23rd of January 1974, if you knew how many people around that area had been admitted to hospital with strange, illnesses, and like very similar to being abducted, not knowing where they were, coming around, not knowing where they were, being sick and what have you, sort of like, he said that you would be amazed just how many people were taken to hospital. It was something that I started looking into, and then I started just recently getting the old, be careful with watching you, like emails and phone calls on my mobile, because I've got a response to UFO reports. People can call me on my mobile phone, and all of a sudden, again, after the books come out, and I'm talking to somebody who seems to know a lot about what happened, getting death threats. Just be careful who you talk to, be careful how you walk, we can get to you, we might get to your family. Well, I've hardly got any family left anymore. Sort of like, it's one of those things, as you get older, your circle of friends and your family gets less and less, because a lot of them have passed away, you know what I mean?
Right.
So, well, they said that 30 years ago. Do your best. You know what I mean? I'm still here waiting. So, this is what you're up against when you've been abducted. I mean, one of the reasons why I started investigating this subject was selfish reasons, in a way, I suppose, because I was wanting to know what had happened to me, and I wanted to set a group up and to find out. And all as you find, when you set groups up, the problem is you've always got those that want to. They see somebody who's got a group, they join, and then they want to make it theirs. You always get this in lots of groups.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They can't think for themselves, and they want to take other people's groups over and what have you. And, and like after all these years of having a group and what have you, like I said, never found any answers. Most people that join the groups are sort of like 5-minute wonders. You know what I mean? They're 5 minutes, sort of like want the thrill of coming and asking questions, and we want to see proof. We want to see. You can show them proof, and it could be this, it could be that. Well, fair enough. And sort of like I decided, instead of pleasing other people, start pleasing myself, if you know what I mean, because only person that matters, that's me these days. I've had enough of running around for other people. But like I said, met some sincere people that have had things happen to them. They claim to have been abducted, but never had the tall, bald aliens, 15 foot tall, a little bit like Nosferatu, and never been put into a military unit. I basically, before any of this nonsense about secret space program and about super soldiers, I was talking about this. There was no name for it. We didn't have super soldier. The name super soldier didn't exist back in 1980, 1990. You know what I mean? And I remember I used to write for a magazine and submit articles, UFO magazine, and I asked him, you know, the editor, how comes I'm never talking at your conferences? Oh, I can't have you talking about aliens fighting wars with weapons, you know? And my dad turned around, because there were 4 witnesses heard what he'd said. My dad turned around and says to me, you know, sort of like, he says, I'd give that lot a miss. He says,
yeah.
He says, there's all these people. He says, you show me these videos of people talking at these conferences. He said, and they don't sell magazines. He said, I won't give any more information, no more videos to them or anything.
Yeah,
I stopped from that day.
It's amazing how even in the community itself, there are still even narrow-minded thinkers that if it doesn't fit their own narrative, they don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
Well, every other month with the magazine, it used to be Roswell or Rendlesham Forest.
Yes.
Yeah, you know, and it's like,
yeah, exactly.
After about 20 years, I think people are getting a little bit bored. You know,
I am.
It's like, I think people do want to know about aliens, you know, carrying weapons and being in a war, fighting other alien races and abducting people, and were fighting for the different alien races, you know, as their allies. And I've come across many alien races that we've been fighting, and many allies, and, you know, from this country, from America, from Europe, Eastern Europe, you know.
So let me ask you a question. We had a first of all, I guess it's probably 2 questions. Are you familiar with Richard Shaver and the Darrow and the Tarot?
Shaver mystery.
The Shaver mystery. Okay, so
that's what I was thinking too, Josh.
A short recap, just so we're all on the same page. So this guy back in the 20s, working as a welder, starts hearing voices from his welding machine. He writes this 10,000-page letter to Ray Palmer of Amazing Stories, the magazine.
In the 40s.
In the 40s, Ray Palmer adds 30,000 words to it and produces the Shaver mystery as a part of the Amazing Stories magazine, and a few other stories to follow. But the gist of it is that there were the Tarot, T-E-R-O, that were good, and they wanted to help humanity. And there were the Darrow, or detrimental robots, who wanted to enslave humanity and eat humanity, basically. So that's the kind of to get us on the same, at least, conversational page. Now, fast forward to last year, the show, Stefan and I were contacted by someone who claimed to be embedded with the Tarot, fighting wars inside the earth, like in caverns and caves and
in the hollow earth
and such. So it just really kind of rings with what you're saying now, as far as, you know, this intergalactic war, because he also mentioned that there were other ET factions, if you will, that were helping the Tarot, and some that were helping the Darrow. So
yeah, well, this I can only say, yeah, I can understand that, because everything that you see on TV news and what have you, I don't bother with the news anymore. I watch podcasts and I listen, you know, like YouTube, because I realise that the news has been taken over. We don't have news. What we seem to have is we seem to have this information which is given to us, which is like not what's really going on.
Right.
You know, It seems to have been sanitized.
Mm.
You know, it seems to have been sanitized. You know, sort of like stripped down, and you get very, very basic news, and everything that you watch is more or less happy clappy. Everybody's happy together. You know, sort of like, and they tell you, you know, you've got these programs about crime telling you, you know, don't worry about crime. You know, there's not that much of it, but there's so much crime that there's programs on about it all the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Right.
you're thinking, well, that doesn't add up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But anyway, so what I've come to realise is that, you know, like there is no news. No news is good news. You know what I mean? And never let the truth. Journalists never let the truth get in, you know, in front of a good story.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Don't let that happen. Don't let the truth sort of like get in between you and a good story. But I mean, I've met some that are all right, but you never get 100% of what you tell them. You know, they don't put 100% in. You know, sort of like they always want you to look like a crazy person.
Of course.
Well, I'm
Well, yeah.
crazy. You know what I mean? Mama, we're all crazy now. I think that was a song in the 70s.
Yeah.
Even now, I mean, you're looking at with, you know, UFOs making headlines as big as they are, it's still pushing towards a more, this is just not us, this is someone else on the planet. It's just advanced technology from Russia or something like that, so that the alien folks are still looked at as a little loony.
Yeah, and I mean, now, unfortunately, what we've got is the Pentagon, the American government, and the English government, British government, especially the American government, have never wanted civilians involving with this subject. Now, you see this in the way things have been played with this name what they give UFOs. They don't want crazy people to get involved in their looking at the fact that there's things flying around out there, these UFOs. So they give it a new name now. What do they call it?
UAPs.
Yeah, what is it?
Unidentified aerial phenomenon.
Aerial phenomena.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you can wrap it up in anything you want. At the end of the day, when you look at the three letters meaning exactly the same thing as a UFO, it's unidentified, it's aerial, flying, it's flying an object. You know what I mean? So what they're doing, and what people, oh my God, you always get them, don't you, in these groups? Setting groups up and calling it that now, doing the government's bidding. You know what I mean? Oh my God. Yeah. You know, you'll get them taking bloody injections because you're being told that there's a virus and that there's no virus. It's the same kind of people, you know, sort of like, they're the people that believe anything. You know what I mean? That they run, and you know, they believe that your government and my government have got vested interests at heart for us. We don't even come into it. We don't even come into it, my friends. You know, sort of like, get real. So anyway, like I said, now the thing is, so what they've done is they've come up with this amazing information about these Tic Tacs. Right, yeah?
Yep.
Now, me and a friend of mine, she'd been filming things outside of her house in North Wales. And she filmed this thing like a torpedo shape, what you would call, or American government would call, CIA, Tic Tacs.
Yeah.
And this was last year when she filmed it. I got in touch with somebody that I know, and I've been in their newspapers, in front page international newspaper, on quite a number of occasions. And the person said to me, look, you know, we need something, you know, new. And I said, well, this is new. It happened a few months ago outside her house, and it looks like this Tic Tac. What we want something a little bit newer. And I guess, well, for one thing, the Tic Tac object, what you've got in the papers and everybody else has followed, is from I think it's from 2004.
Yeah, that's
I
right.
said, so your current news is old news.
Mm-hmm.
Her news that you don't think's current is more current because it's from months ago and not years ago. I just don't understand that, and I don't think I'm friends anymore with this journalist.
But yeah, I think though that kind of along the same line of what you were talking about earlier with, the intended purpose is to sell magazines or newspapers or have people tune into a show. And so what is the hot topic, right? So the hot topic is Tic Tac. So I want Tic Tac, and I produced a picture of a Tic Tac landing in your front yard. I want that, so it's all about selling whatever that the thing is they're trying to sell.
Is that flavor?
Yeah, I mean, just like if we talk about UFOs, you talk about saucers were the hot thing until triangle saucers or triangle crafts became the hot thing, and now it's Tic Tacs.
Yeah, well, let's look exactly what I mean. I know a little bit about these craft Tic Tacs because they're the aliens that take me use something similar. They're called torpedoes. We used to going back to the 50s. It was called torpedoes, right? Yeah, torpedoes, or you could call them cigar-shaped.
Yeah,
that's what we were gonna say. Is that these are just the old cigar shapes.
Yeah, that's now the white, the ones that we are traveling. Some of them are white, some of them are like grey. But it seems like again, it's like divide and conquer. Sort of like, and this is what we're calling them. This is, the new name for them. No, the new name isn't that. The name is unidentified flying objects. Get over it. Anybody who wants to go with it, fantastic. I don't suck up to G-men. You know what I mean? Sort of like somebody from the government tells me something, and they say, "Oh, this is the truth." I go, you know what? I believe that. You know what I mean? Sort of like, it's like anybody from any government, no matter where it's from, America, and especially my country, England. God, anybody from the government telling me something, and anybody from, and especially in the UFO field and MOD field, especially the ones that have told 25 years ago, I can neither confirm or deny. Who seem to be running about now talking about UFOs like they exist, worries me. You know what I mean? So like people that have for 25 years said they can neither confirm or deny, and they're on every show, sort of like, again, sort of like, it seems to be something that what you've got to remember is the media is run by the governments around the world. So, this is why we've got fantastic people doing fantastic jobs like, podcasts, letting people know. This is why, the sales of the tabloids and the broadsheets and what have you, and this is why people have stopped watching the news, because they're not informative anymore. They're not telling you what's going on. And this is why there's more people with podcasts giving out information, and it's what we need.
Well, and you talk about some of the people that get out there and have been in the scene for many years. They're not bringing anything new to the table. They're just repeating the same stuff over and over again.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is it. I mean, like, people ask me about my book and about Berry Mountains. It's fantastic. It's a mystery that happened, and sort of like, I think I've cracked it. There's a lot more that went on. But I'm talking to people and saying, look, there's all this that's gone on. There's all that that's gone on. And like, for instance, I was zapped when I was filming. I I think it was about 2000. I was filming, and I got zapped by a UFO, and I got in touch with one or two people in news, and sort of like not really interested. Then I filmed something falling down out of the sky like a man, but when it went over, it was a craft. And me and my friend saw it, and I put it up on my YouTube. You can see these on Russ Kellett, UFO investigator, abductee, and I put all these, videos up there for people to see. And then I filmed like 2 flying triangles in the sea where I live here about 14 years ago, coming out of the bay, and 18 minutes footage, and then there were things coming down, lights coming down from the sky and what have you, and I was filming sort of like, and I've got my eyepiece, like this, looking, and I'm taking it away, looking at this thing, these things that have taken off, and sort of like, unfortunately, the same old were happening, and that was, Roswell were in the news because some magazine had come up with something, and then somebody had put this nasty images up of a pretend autopsy and what have you, which was like bandied about. And again, all that was happening now or then was being overlooked by, again, people that were promoting Roswell. And then I think somebody had some new information about Rendlesham Forest. New witness comes along. So all this getting out there and filming, abductees and people like myself are actually going out and filming stuff happening around them, sort of like it was just shoved aside for somebody who got some dodgy information out there or other.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But because it was, sort of like going back to old cases, it's what you called lazy journalism.
Yeah, we had a guest on the show that was talking about how in the coming years we're going to start to see a lot more lazy journalism on Rendlesham Forest because the last witness for Roswell has passed, and so they don't have anything to go back to talk to, but there's still a number of witnesses alive with Rendlesham, and so they're going to start milking them dry. This will be the one that starts taking over every year where we would see Roswell stuff. We're going to start seeing even more of a multitude of Rendlesham Forest.
Yeah, well, this is it. This is what I'm saying, exactly the same. So, it's like, why aren't, for instance, why aren't we talking about flying triangles at the side of a road in a bay in North Yorkshire, in this like fishing village?
Yeah.
Right, yeah. Why aren't we talking about these two amazing video of these two amazing craft side by side?
Yeah.
2 lights and then 6 lights.
Yeah,
and then they start coming out of and then more lights start coming around, and then taking off, and then there's lights coming down at them. And I was a bit cold and juddery, so for a few minutes I'm on and off of the image, the crafts and what have you. But it's like, again, I was telling people, but it's like, one of the other things, I had somebody who told me that I'm making a documentary, and one of my problems was, he says, don't put it out there, let me deal with it, and I'm going to make this big film, about the stuff what you're filming. The guy, I waited 2 years. By that time, everything what I had, it was no longer flavour of the month, you could say.
Right.
And it was 2 years later. And then I was asked to make a documentary on the Berwyn Mountains. And what happened, I had a family member take seriously ill, ending up on a life support machine. and then had to be looked after. So, you know, I couldn't get out. I've been invited on radio, TV shows, and everything. But unfortunately, I was at the side of my mum in hospital on a life support machine, and for a year looking after her in hospital with my dad and my sister, you know. So, you know, it's like UFOs, aliens didn't even come into it anymore. You know, sort of like when you know, your mum's dying, it's like
right.
Everything, you know, like you have to put into perspective, haven't you? You know.
Yeah.
So, but then when you know, like getting a well and back on her feet took quite a number of years, and I was glad to do that. You know, and but then all of a sudden, when I could go out and do stuff, we had this horrible, nasty thing. What the internet had sort of like grown. It had grown these trolls and these haters, and they start, you know, attacking people and trying to undo everything what people do. And they can be in UFO groups, and you can get them in groups about UFOs, aliens, or ghosts, cryptozoology, and these people are always there.
Yep.
But
we often talk about, you know, why do they're not skeptics, they're non-believers. Why do the non-believers always join the believers groups just to tear people down?
Because they are what they are, unfortunately. These people are the people that like to cause wars. You know.
Yeah.
These, you know, you'll always get them. And a lot of them are very good. They can put pen to paper. They can, you know, sort of like they can write. The English grammar is fantastic, and might be very verbal, but something not right upstairs with them.
Yeah.
There's something, you know what I mean? There's something missing upstairs with them. Yep. You know what I mean? And they just like to cause havoc, but you just don't bother. You just get on and you just laugh at them, because people. The problem is that some of these people befriend them, and then they get into these groups and they can't get out because they attack people so grievous and cause problems and hate and what have you against people, right? Yeah, they can stop people from talking at groups. You know, they've done that with David Icke. He's had that for years.
Yeah.
And they can basically rip you and call you. And unfortunately, and I think people have come across this, they can write lies about you and you can prove it. You can go to court and prove it. But the problem is, these people, what you call wasters, they have nothing, right? Yeah. They have no income, right? Yeah. And the problem is that if you spend money proving that you're innocent, right, yeah, you end up with a bill and no happens to them. Instead, they should stamp something on their head or tattoo on their head, insane,
yeah,
and lock them up. You know what I mean? Lock them up. And the followers as well. Follower of insane.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. Because that's the only way, and it's the only way to lock them up. Because unfortunately, you know, sort of like you can prove yourself, you end up with no money. You can't take anything from these people because they haven't got anything. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So what they should say is, we'll do it this way. If you prove that you're wrong and you're causing people hassle and what have you, we take you away. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That ain't gonna happen. They can't even do that with murderers and stuff, can they? You know what I mean? It's like, so yeah, that just ain't gonna happen.
Nope.
So I wanted to jump back a little bit if we can. We've got about I don't know, about 10, 12 minutes left.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to talk a little bit about the fighting in the war, in the Intergalactic War. Do you recall? Are you able to recall much of that, or did they take that away when they took out the memory of the other stuff?
No, I remember. Yeah, I remember enough. Unfortunately, yeah.
So does it?
Yeah.
It's a sensitive topic, I'm sure, because it obviously causes you some stress. So I won't get into hopefully not get into the details, but I guess do you have any idea of what the end game is? Why are they, transcripting humans to fight the war? So.
Yeah, well, I know one of the reasons why these talk. I mean, I won't give the name of the planet or the actual race. I won't give their name out. And the bald, the 15-foot tall, there's some even bigger than in the city, where on their planet, huge. They're like some kind of like emperor, and sort of like a clan.
Yeah.
But the reason why we're fighting for them, I don't know about why it isn't the same, or is it the same with the other alien races, is that they're not initially a warrior clan. They're not a warrior clan. And they're more like, from their time and their planet, that they're more like very peaceful and sort of like engineers, like doctors, that kind of thing. And they don't agree with fighting. But this alien race is encroaching on them and wants to destroy them. So it's a little bit like being a Quaker, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Or I think you might call them Shakers in America. And my family were Quakers.
Yeah, we
have Shakers and Quakers.
Yeah, and I think they're very, very similar. Like I say, my grandfathers, they were Quakers. So the thing is, you're not allowed to. You turn the other cheek. You know what I mean? So there come a time when some of them had got together and they said, "We're going to fight. We're going to stand and fight." And they looked how they could get help, and the way that they could get help was to come and to basically abduct us. So what happened was they basically they ousted the ones that were wanting to fight from their planet, the sort of like where they lived on, there were a base where they live, and we're abducted, and we go to that base and we fight for them alongside them. But what they did is they were 15 foot tall, but the ones that are actually fighting, they made them their stature like 6 foot. And it's like so that they know that they're fighting. They might be their race, but they're not alongside the people that they're looking after, really.
Yeah.
So it's like it's a mark that shows you that alien race had been sort of like like reduced in stature, so that they knew that it was them that were fighting and not the elders, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense. I mean,
absolutely.
It's they're still fighting and they're still on your planet. So so that's why that specific alien race that abducts me, sort of like had abducted the people from our world, this Earth, because it's gone against its, it's like its hierarchy, more or less, to fight for its own people.
Yeah.
So we had a guest on a few episodes back to talk to us about the Lycaonians that she had encountered that were what we sometimes described as like werewolves or whatever. But when she was on, she talked a lot about the Draco and
The Draconians.
the Draconians and their fight against the Lycaonians. So I think in one of the interviews that I read about that you gave, you mentioned something about the Dragos or the Dracos as well.
Yeah. And funnily enough, there's I've got some drawings somewhere of these like dogmen and werewolves that fight alongside them.
There we go.
You know, they can be human one minute,
Yep.
the next thing they're just, you know, like screaming, murdering, half man, half wolf, half man, half
Berserkers,
dog.
yeah.
You know, sort of like, you know, you just can't tell, because the thing is, they're like, in a way, they're like, they're made to do that, so that they can fool people. They can be human 1 minute, and then they can attack you. You think that they're normal, and all of a sudden, you know, they're just these ravaging. They don't need weapons. They don't need weapons, because
it's even some of the old
rip you
stories
to
of
pieces.
it's even some old stories of the berserkers, you know, that they believed were quickly could turn into an animal or animalistic without blinking. And they were there and they were attacking, no weapons needed.
That's right. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. That's right. I mean, I don't know how much drugs sort of like infuse that or whatever. Yeah, I've read
Right.
that there were some races they'll drink something, you know, they'll eat something and drink something, and it just turns their mind, and then they become what they want, you know.
Yeah, like a
Whether
Dr.
that has
Jekyll,
anything
Mr.
to
Hyde.
do with it as well, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
some people are like that. I met a few people like that, believe me. But
well, and there's also like there's
you know,
talking
1 minute
about.
you're all right, and the next is turning and stabbing you in the back. But anyway.
Yeah.
I was going to say there's a lot of that. You know, we talk about pop culture, kind of introducing some of these things to the masses, if you will. And I think it's Thor: The Dark World, the movie. You know, they've got the I can't remember what they're called, but they're basically like they crush something and they become these unstoppable, you know, weapons of war until they're defeated. So it's kind of the same. Again, using pop culture to introduce these methodologies, if you will, to the masses. So, yeah.
Well, you get that. I mean, I'm surrounded in my room by sort of like this pop culture of like X-Files.
Yeah.
You know, because I mean, the thing is that at the time, you know, sort of like leading in the thought of what was going on, and to be quite honest, it's even darker than that.
Yeah.
You know, governments are involved. You know, there's no doubt about it, and you know, that if you look at the reality of it, is that if there's a war going on, and the you know, like there's one race of aliens fighting against another, there's all this technology there to be taken, to be back engineered, and you know, I should imagine that, you know, there is a secret space program. I'm not in the one that other super soldiers talk about,
Right?
But there is something going on, and of course, every government, you know, would be looking at technology to keep one step ahead of, you know, other countries. It goes without saying.
Yeah.
You will do that. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah. I mean, I guess part of me is, if these things were from a government on our planet, I guess I would just think that we would actually see them in practical use during, the wars of the last 20 or 30 years, instead of what we've seen actually being used. But to your point, Russ, maybe, what we all rely on, what we see is what is fed to us via the news. And so maybe, we don't actually see what is in use.
I had people. Right. Well, basically what you usually see is 5 minutes, 10 minutes of footage from an hour-long news feed about a war, any war.
Yeah.
And you'll see them using tanks and cannons and aircraft. But how do you know that, that might have happened, that might be placed there purposely to show the people this is what's happening.
Right.
But that might be maybe one instance. Right, yeah? That might be one instance. Maybe the battles that are going on at the same time are nothing like that.
Yep.
You never see a cameraman going out there filming the whole issue, do you? And then putting it down into an hour, like being there a year and then editing it and then getting an hours long documentary feature. How comes you never get it? You never get that.
Yep.
And it could be because.
Oh, I was just gonna say, Russ, we're running out of time.
Right.
So I wanted to make sure that there was an opportunity for you to share any information or plug anything that you've got, where they can find your books and things like that. I wanted to make sure you had an opportunity to do that before we took off.
Well, I've got 2 books out. One's called E.T. Rider, and you can buy that on Amazon. And the other one is the Alien Invasion Wales on Amazon. And that's. I don't like talking about selling books and stuff.
Hey, we do though. We like to support you big time. I just bought the E.T. Rider book, so
Well,
want to make sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's one of these things where I love now, watching podcasts, and I would just wish I had more time because I do things myself, and being out early hours this morning, on this Skywatch, what we did, calling occupants of interplanetary craft, and we filmed last night about 6 or 7 objects.
Wow!
So I'll be putting them up on YouTube, maybe, when I just get myself sorted out. But
Perfect.
I hadn't been in long when you called.
Yeah.
Been out since, yesterday.
Well, thank you so much for coming on our show. You are welcome back anytime, because I would really love to just really explore some more with your thoughts on things, as well as some of your memories and things like that. But thank you so much, Russ. You are welcome anytime.
You're welcome, Stefan, and welcome, Josh, and thanks for a great show.
All right. And thank you all for tuning in to the Convergence Enigma with Josh and Stefan. Just a reminder, you can watch this version on YouTube at youtube.com/Fearscape Media. You can check out this if you're wanting to see our beautiful mugs. You can check it out there, or just listen to the podcast version. But just a reminder, this is Stefan. I want to remind you to keep your eyes on the skies, folks.
This is Josh. The truth is now.
And remember, folks, keep questioning, keep searching. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Right.